Hello everyone, it's Mike Levin from MikeLevinSEO.com, and no sooner did I do this last tutorial of putting the validator required in for one of the fields did I realize that my next step was to put the validator required in for the other field. And if one is observant, you will notice that these are mutually exclusive techniques or methods. This one is going to work on a Google Docs spreadsheet, and this one is going to work on an uploaded CSV file. So I can't very well make them both required, and this concept of making one field or the other field required is a little bit tricky. It's not built into the wtforms library I'm using, but as in many things minimal Python libraries, it gives you everything you need to program it yourself, and unfortunately I'm not up to that right now. So this is one of those diving into the deep end right away projects for finding some code on the internet to solve this problem, which happens to be right here in GitHub. And I'm going to save you a very painful video by just telling you the things I need to do as I go that I discovered over the past hour plus of banging my head against this problem. So this is not where I really want it in the code, but I'm going to put it here just so that you can see it while we're doing this stuff. We want to do a set paste, I for insert, paste it in there. And as you may recall from my prior videos, if I do a visual select, I can now do :s / space 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 / space space / g. I now have the 2-space indent convention that I like. I'll save that. I'll make sure I didn't introduce any sort of syntax error. It would have barfed out by now had I. And next, I am going to do a Python 2 to 3 conversion. I happen to know right here, this iter items just becomes items. So I got to take out the iter. Saved you a lot of grief watching me scratching my head in a confused video. Also, you'll notice it refers to this optional VW and required here, VW. Well, what it's referring to is a wtform validator, so I will put optional and required up here. And now we look at the usage. Instead of validators.required, which is what I was using, we put required if, and then the name of the field, and then the value that it needs to be in the other field in order for this field to be required. So that change is going to take place here. And you'll notice that ZZ is recenter around my cursor. Nice way of making it nicer to look at. We stay inside these square brackets. That still applies, but I'm going to take out validators required, and I'm going to put in required if, open parenthesis, and we're on the G key field, so this is going to be CSV file equals, and I believe it's none. I might end up changing that to empty, but we close the parenthesis, and now we put this in, and I just want to scroll up a bit so that you can see how we're using required if, and now we put our square brackets in, required if, and now we look at the other field, G key. G key equals none. Close parenthesis. Let me think through if I forgot anything. I believe this looks pretty solid. Save it. We'll see if I introduce any syntax errors. I've done a few saves here, so it's hard to tell one from the other. We'll do a refresh. The server has gone offline. There it is, having come back. Okay, so first of all, if neither field is provided, it should not be able to go to I would populate now. One or the other actually has to be required. So I've got something wrong in my logic. Let's go look. Yeah, I think it's the difference between none and the empty field. I had this working before making this video because it took so much struggling. And that's probably one of those details. Stopping and starting. Refresh. Ah, good. Okay, there we go. So as you recall, the behavior from the validation from the form not being fully validated is to just rebuild the form. So as you see, it's not accepting just hitting the populate button like it did a second ago. Now, we already had the situation where if you filled in a spreadsheet key and you click that, it said, I would populate now. That's good. We hit back. We blank this. We just double check that it would reject the form. Now we choose our file. And unlike the last time, it should now accept it. Voila! We are in Flask _ WTF, and WTF forms were in the Jenga 2 templates. We are doing field validation. And what we just did is we found a GitHub project. I'll have to check the licensing on this to add a required if custom validation field. And I'm not even going to talk through the stuff in here because this is using the object-oriented notation within Python. And I'm not ready to explain that yet to people who are just learning. This I find to be somewhat advanced. There's an initialization function, a call function, it feeds itself, and then, well, anyway, object-oriented is more confusing to look at than just normal procedural programming and functions. So we have to just take this at face value. This is what a lot of those libraries that we installed look like under the hood. So we're putting one of those under the hood type things in here, living right with our main Git repository. And the one last thing I'll do is I will move this to where it's not quite so distracting. I'll just do Shift-G, jump to the bottom of the document, and I'll put it right above where our custom functions are starting. Paste. And now we won't have to look at it again. Save. Git commit am made one or the other field required. That's a fantastic stopping point for today. And Git push. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again soon, and don't forget to subscribe.